Alright, here is the end of my aluminum strut. This is the Cabane strut, or one of the Cabane struts. I've got my aluminum insert already in, and this is a 2.5 inch long insert. I've got the angle cut here, the relief angle cut, which I have a couple pictures of, that will allow the strut to tilt depending on where the wing has to be located. And I've got the insert itself centered on the flats that are integral to the strut itself. So this insert is centered on the flats here and here. Now you could look down the end of these. You can't tell here because of the lighting, but you can actually look down through these and make sure that the opposite end of this insert down here is also in alignment. You don't want the far end of the insert off one way or the other. You want to make sure it continues to go down a straight line. So what I'm going to do now is I have a pencil mark here which represents center line of the insert, and I'm just going to mark a pencil line using a square straight up the center line of the insert. And what that will do is that will just give me a reference line to put the two holes so that they'll be in alignment with the center of the insert. So I'm going to do that next. Alright, one thing that you may not notice right off the bat is how incredibly still this particular video clip is. It's because I finally got a tripod for my camera, so I thought I'd go ahead and try to make some use of it here now. What you see here in this picture are the fittings for the cabanes, obviously attached to the fuselage. This is an 1/8 inch piece of plywood, just scrap plywood, that I'm going to throw in here as a spacer. And here is my Cabane strut with the angle cut. It's got the insert. It should probably help if I actually show it to you. It's got the insert in it. It's got the angle cut for the tilt. And if I can get the glare off of it, here is the line that I just talked about drawing on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this down in here, and I'm going to have it rest on this flat here, not the angle flat in the back, but the actual flat area here that's 90 degrees to the rest of the strut. So I'll get that in place, and I'll move it so that the line that I drew is now center of the hole, and you can see it's flat here, and I'll just go ahead and put a pencil mark to represent the center of this hole on that line. Then I can center punch that mark and take it over to the drill press and drill it. So here's the strut with the insert, and you can see the pencil line that represents center down the length of the insert, and then the two punch marks for the holes. This is the hole that was marked previously in the first clip for the fitting that's on the fuselage. That will be a 1/4 inch hole, and then the one further down is 3/16 just to help hold the insert to the strut itself. And since my inserts are 2.5 inches long, this hole is roughly 2 1/4 from this end. So that's where I'm at this point. And I'm going to get the drill press set up, and then I'll come back and explain some other things. Alright, so back to the strut. What I have here is a vise with the V grooves cut in. It's got a vertical V groove here, and it's got a horizontal V groove here. These vices are perfect for these aerodynamic struts, because you could fit the trailing edge right into that V groove, which renders this nice and flat in relation to your table, and it's perpendicular to your drill chuck. The mild tricky part is, as I adjust this a little bit, how do you get the strut itself in this orientation to be perpendicular to the drill bit, because there's no V groove on the other side for the leading edge. So what I have done is I've brought my drill chuck down and locked it in place, and I bring the strut over to it, and I basically just do a visual, take a visual preference or a visual cue, if you will, from the drill bit. Now I got a glare. Let's see if I can move this. Hello. So I don't know how well this is going to show it. Wow, that's bad. It's like a light show, isn't it? Alright. But if you look, now that I've got the drill chuck locked in place, you can kind of see that it's, if you look at the insert itself, you can see that the insert is parallel to the drill. If this strut was cocked at all, you would see that in relation to the drill bit. So now you can see that it's in line with the drill. So now obviously the hole is going to be nice and straight and true through the insert. I'm sure you can fixture it some other way if you don't have this kind of vise, but I'm not really sure how you would do that at this point. But since I had the V-groove chuck, obviously that's what I'm going to make use of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill this first hole here. This is my 1/4 inch hole. I work it up to 1/4 inch in steps. I start with this little drill bit here, and then I go up to 3/16, and then I'll drill it out with the 1/4 inch, and then I'll come back. Alright, stand by. So now, you can't see it, but I've got my first hole drilled all the way through, the 1/4 inch hole. And what will happen now is if this insert doesn't fit inside the strut tightly, as you drill this hole, it will torque this, and the opposite end of this, the far end of the insert down here, will end up moving over one way or the other. So what I had elected to do was to sight down through the strut. You can use the extrusion lines that are inside here. They're very faint. If your eyes are good enough, you can see them, and you could use those as a reference to line up your insert. So I did that, and I had the insert flush, the bottom of the insert here flush with the bottom of the strut, and I went ahead and drilled this first hole. Now I just drop a bolt through it to hold it in place. From here I'll sight back down through the strut, and I'll stick a screwdriver on one side or the other, and I'll kick this end, the opposite end, over whichever way needs to be to get it back into alignment. And then I'll go ahead, leave the bolt in place, leave everything else in place, and then go ahead and drill this back hole. Now, what else is there? I think that might be about it. Another good thing about this vise with the V-groove, as you can see, there's space underneath it, so it's not too important where you position the strut, because it's not laying on anything. So you can go ahead and drill through it, and the drill bit won't drill through anything else. It will clear the strut. I thought there was something else I wanted to mention, but I guess there isn't. So I've got this all in place. I got the bolt in, I've got this sighted, and I've got the end moved back over so that this is parallel with the center line, and I'm going to go ahead and drill this backside bolt now. And here's the finished product. You can see the 1/4 inch hole here for the metal fitting attachment itself, and then this hole here is nothing more than a 3/16 inch hole just to help hold the insert to the strut. Yes, the one thing that I wanted to say before that I couldn't remember, if you I forget the exact outside dimensions for this strut, but this inside dimension between the flats is for a 3/4 inch insert. So I went ahead and used a 3/4 inch square insert. Now you could use like a 3/4 inch by 1 inch insert, but you'll have to machine it on the ends to get it to fit. However, if you do that, then you won't have to worry about it swinging inside the strut when you drill the holes. I didn't see a point for that because it would take some time to machine it to fit, and it would add a little bit of weight, and structurally I don't think it would add anything because the added beef would be on the sides here and not so much through where the hole is or where the insert is going to be pulling when the wings are attached and the plane is up and flying. The stresses are going to be through here. They're not really going to be across this width. So I elected not to do it. And then my workaround for this thing swinging when you drill the holes is what I had just shown. So that's where I'm at now. I'm going to take this and throw it on the fuselage and see how they fit. Here we are back at the fuselage with the strut temporarily attached. Here's my bracket, obviously, and the strut is in place, and you can see that it's angled backwards, so it's resting on that angled part that I had cut, and you can see the leading edge, which is actually flat. It's actually perpendicular to the strut. Leading edge is up in the air, so I've got this movement here for the adjustment of the wing itself forward and aft. If I can stand this up that way temporarily, this dimension here from where the strut was cut flat to where I had cut this angle from the flat part of the strut, this dimension here is about 1/4 of an inch. So I cut off about 1/4 of an inch here and then just tapered it down to nothing right where the flat begins for the insert. So the insert is here, and from the trailing edge, if you will, of the insert, that's where I marked this reference. And then I came back here and measured 1/4 of an inch, and then I used a disc sander type of thing and just sanded this angle off. And you can see this distance in here, that's the 1/16 of an inch or so from the plywood, and it gives clearance for this to rotate. Now I don't expect this angle to be this severe. If I were to fade back and show you the angle of this strut, it's pretty severe, so I would imagine the actual flight angle would probably be in here somewhere. It may look kind of odd because of the camera angle, but even in here is a pretty good angle, a pretty good swept back angle, and there's still plenty of room between the bottom of the strut and the plywood. It's a little deceiving with the camera, but I still got about a 1/16 of an inch or so gap. The other good thing about this setup is a lot of people will have that insert stick out of the strut, and they'll bolt to it, and then they'll have 2 bolts in the strut itself to hold the insert. Doing it this way, I'm only using 2 bolts. I save that 3rd bolt. The other thing that's nice about this setup is the longeron, as we all know, is 1 inch, and then there's some plywood gussets. There's a plywood gusset on this side for this bracket. This bracket attaches to the outside of the plywood gusset, so that adds 1/8 of an inch. And on this side, there's going to be the sheeting that goes here. That's going to add another 1/8 of an inch. So you get this side-to-side adjustment, if I can get it to move. The side-to-side adjustment of the strut on all 4 struts. So you can see how much I've got, obviously about 1/8 of an inch gap here, because that's how big the gusset is, how fat the gusset is underneath where you can't see it. There'll be another 1/8 inch of plywood added here, so I'm going to gain another 1/8 of an inch here. So this just gives you some fine tuning to align the strut with the center section. Great, just pull the bolt all the way out and smack yourself with it. So that was just another nice little thing that I liked about having it set up this way. And when I get to it, I'll do some more video on how to do the other end of these, where they attach to the center section. Now on that, I believe I'm going to have to do that other end with the insert actually sticking out, but I'm not there yet. So there we are, and I don't know if this will stay in focus, but you can see I've got the two up front temporarily in place. And the one that I just made is going to drop in on this side here. So that's that, and we will continue on.